Okay, perfect. Okay, I'm going to start the Student Achievement Committee meeting on November 29th, 2023 at 4:31 PM. We're going to start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody. Public comment, item number 2. Do we have anybody out there?
Doug, I think you had the recording. I just want to double check to make sure there's no other participants.
I am looking and I don't see anybody that's in that is not part of the meeting.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll go on to item number 3, approval of the agenda. I would like to add an item 10, which would push adjournment down to 11, to have an update on the high school personal finance courses. Deb, would you or Katie be ready for that? Is that okay?
Yeah, it's okay, but can we move it next to my presentation on the pathways? Because I think that's
Right
first.
after 5? Sure. Yep.
Not that I don't adore all of you and want to stay for the entire meeting, but if I don't have to, that would be lovely.
That's fine. That's fine. So we could put it, I'd like to amend the agenda to put the update on the high school personal finance courses after item number 5. So I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Okay, Jamie, and second,
Second.
Bob. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item number 4 is the approval of the minutes for October 25th. I did not attend the meeting. I did read the minutes, so I will abstain. So are there any changes? No?
Do we want to hold off on the minutes till next month? That way we have one more person. Because if you abstain, we won't really have a majority.
The majority? Okay. So we'll hold off. I'll put that on here, hold off. The motion is off the table. Item number 5, high school pathways. Here we are.
There, I knew it was coming. I didn't print out the agenda, but I knew it was right there somewhere. So thank you for asking us to come. I first want to say that, and I'm going to thank my team of Erica and Matt, Katie, and Eliza's usually here, but for attending. I'm not sure who's on the phone, but that could be somebody else from my group. And I encourage any of you to pop in and comment when you need to say something, but I'll do the majority of the presentation because it's just easier to just hear from one person on a Zoom or whatever on a Google Meet. And so as we get into it, if somebody has something to add or if I misspeak, please, by all means, group, let me know. So what I'm going to do is, I know Liza filled you in a little bit on our progress on the pathways or the beginnings of our pathways. I'm going to tell you where we were, which is very brief because we weren't really anywhere, where we are now, and what our plan is moving forward. So last year-ish when I got there, Matt has been raring to go for a long time on career and college pathways and getting the capstone up and running and having basically having great opportunities for the learners in D13. He's been working at this for a long time under Brian's, tutelage way back when Brian was here. So Katie, Matt, and I got together at one point with Liza and started to talk about, how we could develop some pathways. And Katie, I went to the Shoreline Principals meeting, and Katie and Matt met with Westbrook, who has a very robust program of studies with their pathways. And I'm speaking for you, but you can shake your heads yes if you want. Katie and Matt, when you guys left that meeting, you were really overwhelmed, didn't really know where to start. She was very helpful, but it was just very overwhelming. So fast forward to the opportunity for the dual enrollment grant that Liza so kindly wrote up and submitted on our behalf, and we were granted and set a very nice plan in motion for us to start working with Sal Menzo through Goodwin to not only develop pathways, but to articulate some of our classes. Our goal is not to necessarily have everybody get on a pathway and be the only path they take, but to have some real robust experiences in things that they're interested in so that they can make really good decisions that aren't going to necessarily cost them a lot of money or cost them a job because they didn't know what they were getting into. So whether it's spending money on college courses in engineering and never having taken a physics course, or if it's, going, thinking that you're going into manufacturing and CNC, but you're really standing on a floor and watching a machine move and you're not allowed to go anywhere, not understanding that that's part of the job to build, what you want to do. So that's where we were. And that's why I said that was brief, because we were really at a standstill till Liza got that grant and we started working with Sal. Sal has been instrumental in giving us a path. We've worked with him 3 times now for almost 3 full days each, giving us a path and a plan. And the really nice thing about the way he's been doing it is we take what we already have. So we take what we already have and we put it into sections so that we can give students an idea of what they should be taking going through. So that was our first course. That was our first thing. We had to look at our program of studies and what are we already offering? And so we went through, and what we noticed very quickly was we offer at Coggins a very strong science, health and human services, we're going to call it, but a health and human services pathway. Doesn't mean that we offer everything that we'd want them to have, but we also, through Matt's capstone work, have noticed that a lot of kids have an interest in the science or in public policy. Right now, we run an EMT course. We're piloting a fire science course this spring with Craig and the fire departments in Middlefield and Durham. So there's some crossovers there, but we do offer quite a bit. And Erica was at all those meetings that already fit into a science pathway. And so we spent a lot of time over the past, sorry, I get discombobulated when everybody moves, over the past, meetings, kind of going through our coursework and seeing where our courses settle out and what we can really build as far as courses and experiences for the kids. Because I think my team can agree that the other thing we found in the health services pathway was we have a lot of connections in town. Right. We have Middlesex that used to offer a great internship program, and we're hoping that they do it again. We have lots of medical folks that are learners' parents or, involved with us some way. Like Bob just said at the beginning of this meeting, you never know who has a connection until you reach out. And what we find is, we have a lot of connections through Craig Bradnini, through the fire department, just great opportunities for the students. So we did that. We went through our courses. We kind of lined them up in everybody. I wanted to do 14 pathways. I think everybody on the team wanted to do 14 pathways. And then we quickly decided we don't have the students for 14 pathways, right? Because you have to be able to support them and have the students in them. So we really looked at what we had and what we could do. And I think we've settled on 4 with some branches so that we can, continue to offer the robust courses that we have, as well as give kids opportunity to have other experiences, right? I mean, what 13-year-old coming out of 8th grade is going to know exactly what they want to do. So if they decide they want to be a doctor and they can't, and this happened to my sister, I'll say nurse, because this happened to my sister in college, but can't pass the chemistry course. She did finally pass it, and she's a very good nurse. But they need to, I'd rather have them have that experience early and often and have an off-ramp, right? We're still a public high school. We still are going to offer APs and ECEs and all those things that we can offer. And so we've settled around 3, maybe 4, something in the technology manufacturing area. We haven't named it yet. So we can still play with that if you have any suggestions, because our name is really long right now. 1 in the health and human services. I think we've settled on that. And then 1 in business, because we have a pretty strong business focus at the high school between the t-shirt company, We are applying for the shipping container gardening grant, which I don't know if any of you have seen that at the state level, but it's a year-round gardening project that's going to help sustain some of our food needs, as well as maybe have us be able to do some other things as far as marketing and business. We have our food service area, which can also be marketed. We had a meeting today that Samantha Winkler was at. MTA is something that can be marketed, so marketing and business and building all that is another really strong area for our learners. So that's kind of where we settled. Do you guys all agree with me, or do you want to add something you guys are good? So our work now is we really want to pilot or begin really settling down on the health and human services side. And it is going to require some changes in courses, because our other opportunity working with Sal and getting the grant is a lot of our courses can be articulated. They can be taken for credit and given credit for a very low amount of money. I think right now it's $50 a credit for a lot of classes that we already offer. If we look at our curriculum and look at our syllabi and we can match them up with Goodwin, UB, UConn can even be one of them. Any of the schools that offer the classes we can certainly work with. Sal works very closely with University of Bridgeport and Goodwin College, of course. So he's been getting us those syllabi and working on, what can be taken for credit. Our goal is in any given pathway, if a student was a completer or above that they could get anywhere from none, but to up to 21, 28, maybe even 30 credits in that pathway for a very low amount of money. Now, they don't have to dual enroll. They can still take these classes and not enroll and get the college credit. But one of the things that he's talked to us a lot about, and we've done the research on, and Matt shared an article that I can share with all of you, is sometimes when we get some students to get some college credit that didn't think that they were college bound, then might be interested in getting their associate's degree or, working toward college while they're working, or deciding that's not the route for them. They already still have some college credits, but they can go into the workforce and they know what maybe a CNA is required. Or maybe they already have their EMT certification, because that's one of the things that we have in this particular pathway, and probably for all of our students. We really want to focus on certificates as well as articulated courses. So in this one, we really want our 9th and 10th graders to get CPR, first aid, and stop the bleed certified. We could also get them as far as being trainers of trainers once they're 18. So if they turn 18 their senior year, we can probably, Craig, again, because Craig's name comes up a lot, Craig can then again find a way to help them become like a trainer of a trainer. So we want to offer those certification, the manufacturing and engineering pathway. We talk about the OSHA certifications, things that they can put on ladder certifications, things that, and quite honestly, and I know some of these because my son did them at Vinyl. So things that other schools are offering that we can certainly offer right within the classes we already have. So again, so you can hear the future in my voice of the other ones we want to develop. But what we'd like to do right now and what we're starting to work on, we've, like I said, worked with Sal twice. This group has a meeting next week to do what's called a heat map of the courses we want to offer next year in the health and human services. And Eric and I already started this with Katie, but the year after, making sure we have the right people in the right places, teaching the right courses, so that not only do the students know what's coming and who's teaching it, but that the teachers know their requirements if the class is going to be articulated, or if it's something like a medical terminology class and we look at the syllabus and it's a vocabulary class, and any of you that have taken any class like that, we definitely want to make sure the right person's in place to keep it interesting enough. I mean, vocabulary is vocabulary, right? So we have to make sure that we keep these kids interested. So that's exactly where we are right now. We meet on December 11th to do some of that and map out probably freshman and sophomore years. None of these pathways are going to be completed by a student or any of our learners, unless they're a freshman coming in next year, and that'll just be Health and Human Services. But one of the things Erica and I talked about this week, and we'll talk about with the rest of the committee, is, we really want sophomores to be able to jump in, or when they're juniors, if they want to take an elective that's offered, of course they're going to be able to take it. We're never going to say, no, you can't take that, and see how many we can get into different things, especially if they're interested. Through Naviance or some of the other interest inventories that Matt does, we'll have a good idea of how many we'll get in different pathways. And that's, of course, another thing. If we've only got, and again, we want to retain our 8th graders, there's 100 and Katie's going to tell me I'm wrong, 104. I think it's 104 8th graders right now at Strong School. If I could retain 104, that would be great. We usually look at somewhere between 80 and 90 when we have about 100. Retaining them, which is a great number. And then if you have 3 or 4 pathways, then you're looking at 20 kids in a pathway. It doesn't mean those are the only 20 kids that take a biology course ever, or a chemistry course, but it might be the only ones that take medical terminology. We just won't know until we build the ship. And that's okay. I'd love to see 20 kids take a medical terminology class because that's what they're interested in going on to. Another reason for building this, and I have my notes over here, as you can see, is, last year we had a lot of talk at Strong and at the high school about not eliminating, but not having study halls. If kids are interested, if learners are interested in things, they'd rather be in a class that is of interest to them than in a study hall. And they may disagree, but I think that they'll see that as they build it. And if they really want to go on and be a nurse, a doctor, and, they might, or the public policy side, as Erica said the other day, they'll see the value in forensics, and we'll get more kids interested in that class than, typically we have. So it's a work in progress. Matt, you want to talk a little bit about what you said to the staff about, why wouldn't we do this? When we presented to the staff 2 weeks ago, I can say the 5 or 6 of us were a bit nervous. We weren't sure how it was going to be received, because this is a change in mindset for them. But Matt did a really nice job as the dad of 3 little kids in district. Go ahead, Matt. Tell them a little bit about what you said.
Sure. Putting my parent hat on for a second and kind of taking my counselor hat off, as a parent, it gives my kids and everybody else's children the opportunity to kind of feel out maybe what their interests are before they have to make a life-changing decision, like going to college or the workforce, or, going on to an additional tech school or something like that. But it also gives, from my standpoint, them an option to accumulate college credit at a pretty reasonable cost in case they are going to college. But it also, just in terms of the academics, it really picks up the level of, not necessarily the rigor that, it's going to be dependent on how much we can hold them to that level of academic standard, but it gives them a robust offering so that they have the ability to go explore those things and keep them A, out of study hall, but B, give them a real opportunity to get the skills that they're going to need to compete when they leave Coggins. And, having been a graduate myself who got stuck in quite a few study halls, I would have loved to have had the opportunity to go explore things. And I think that is something that we can really, at least from a counselor standpoint, also put my counselor hat back on now, really direct kids, once we figure out what their strengths are, what their interests are, and kind of help guide them on the path or multiple paths and let them explore so that they have a better idea of what they're getting into when they leave here. Because I think right now we're doing a good job, but I think we can absolutely pick it up in terms of giving their kids a variety of options that are much more embedded in what the world is that they're going to step into, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Matt. Erica, Katie, do you guys have anything to add? I mean, and then if you guys have questions, we're happy to answer anything. It's definitely not in depth as where we are, but that would make your meeting go till tomorrow, and I didn't want to do that to you. No? You guys are good?
Yeah,
The
no, I
only
think
thing
you
I
explained it beautifully, Deb. I mean, I just think something that's super exciting is just how this is giving you the opportunity for our students to have such a voice in their learning. I mean, we're talking about student-centered and giving students the opportunity to have a voice and what their interests are, and not necessarily college or career, but the opportunity to explore both, and just get to personalize their learning. And I mean, what's more appealing than that, both for the students and the staff?
Go ahead, Lindsay, you had a question?
Yeah, I had a couple. When you were
Sure.
talking about Westbrook's pathways, how long has that been in place, and have they been successful, and have they had to take that time to build the pathways over time, or has it been all at once? Or
No, I'll let Matt talk to that. They've been working on
Yeah.
it forever.
So they started, I want to say in 2018, 2019, kind of laying the groundwork. They hired essentially, she is a full year administrator who's kind of their career counselor also, and does a lot of the curriculum work to kind of embed these pathways. They went with all of the official federal pathways. They're in a very unique position though, where they've got Electric Boat down the road, who is investing quite a bit in that part of the state in educational development. So they were kind of given quite a bit of money to build some programs. They're also smaller than us, and that includes in staff size. So what they've done with their pathways is they've had to layer classes where they might offer one every other year to make sure that every kid that goes through has a chance to take the class, but they might not offer it every semester or every year, depending on what the course is. And there's different branches off their pathways. It's very large. To be completely honest with you, I'm not sure that they're doing 100% of what they have in that book, but they're doing quite a bit, and they're doing it really well. COVID threw them off, but I believe that they've kind of gotten on track the last year and a half or so.
yeah, I think that makes sense. And I was trying to think of it because I talked to Westbrook a good amount at our most recent CABE conference, and they do have a lower enrollment than we do, but I think it lends us to the same type of personalized learning that we're looking for. And I do think that they're trying to reach a pathway for each student, which is important too. So I think that's great.
One of the things we talked about too is our ability to partner with other districts. So for example, Meriden is building a very large cybersecurity, something that like University of New Haven has, where they go in and there's a breach, and then the cybersecurity, they have to solve the problem as a group. North Branford is in the throes of, excuse me, rebuilding their whole high school, and they're going to have a huge manufacturing piece, a whole shop. And so one of the things that we want to do and offer when we try to look and be a little bit different is that fire science, that EMT. If we could get kids, involved in that back down here, that would be, another way to have kids cross over and be able to offer more pathways in conjunction with the community out at large. I think that's valuable. We know we can work with them. And that's one of the ideas going forward. Bob, did you have something? You unmuted.
Yeah, I think we already have a music pathway.
We do too. Absolutely. And that's one of the things, and I didn't mention that, Bob, so I'm glad you said it. Like, by no means does this at all get rid of music, art. Like, there is a visual arts or music pathway, under our, we could call it liberal arts. We could call it, like, if a kid really wants to do that, you're absolutely right. We can build a pathway for each kid that wants it. We don't necessarily have 50 kids that are going, 30 kids that want to go into a music career. But if we know, and I'll use the Steffens as an example, the boys, they knew they wanted to, well, one's a teacher and the other one plays, like they knew they wanted to. We could absolutely build that pathway for them while still making sure they meet the graduation requirements. And the pathway that Eric and I worked on yesterday for freshmen leaves room for 2 electives. Well, 1.5 really, right, Erica? Electives in their schedule for freshman year, where they could choose to take band, chorus, art class, pottery. Well, I think they have to take art before they take pottery, but like those kind of things. So absolutely, it still lets them be well-rounded, because we are, like I said before, a public high school, and we have those offerings. But a kid that wanted to specialize in that, absolutely, there's 2, and then with Ryan, 3 of them there to give them that experience. So I'm glad you said that, because we were nervous about that in the beginning too. And that's one of the things we were nervous about telling the staff. People, worried about their own jobs. Of course they would be. And why wouldn't they be? But I don't know. And if you guys again disagree, let me know. I don't see after we had that meeting, I don't see anywhere where anyone's in jeopardy of a group of people not being represented in what we did that we already have.
No, just to piggyback on that, I think that we're looking at building out even more pathways as we get going, and I think we're starting small with the knowledge that we're going to have to expand what we do, and that's going to encompass all the departments we already have, because there's so many things. If you look at the federal pathways, there's a lot of different things that we offer that we're going to fit in all of those.
Like our electronic music class, for example, Bob, could be part of our computer, whatever we're going to call it, the technology pathway, because it's a technology class. It's producing music all online, all on the program that she's using. So while it counts for STEM for graduation credit, it can also, if somebody's in that pathway for computers and they want to learn how to do that for background music to gaming, there's their class, and so, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that.
We also have a lot of students in the last couple of years that have gone into engineering, some into biomedical, some into other more standard engineering courses that, at least from the interviews I've done, that, there seems to be a fairly large interest in the engineering aspects, which would, mostly drive chemistry and physics as needs for many of those students, and a lot of calculus. And so, those are, maybe you don't need it a pathway, but under a technical program, they need to have, find their way to get into those things. And, they're a great help when you've had a number of credits to skip to your sophomore calculus instead of your freshman one. There's a lot of capability I think our kids have that have been looking at that.
Yeah, I agree. And that's again, Erica, when we met in the big group, Erica and Craig, talked a lot about that, and the ability, like you said, to have them articulated, or to now develop an intro to engineering class that matches a Goodwin Technical College. And even if they don't, maybe they want to go on to just welding or something, that's going to help them, because at some point they've got to take something in there that has to do with that. So, and I think I said it, but I'll say it again. We also offer an off-ramp at any time. So if a kid gets on a pathway and they're like, oh no, don't want to, change my mind. Like, again, we can put them anywhere. We can build them something else, and they can still take articulated classes in different areas if that's what they wanted to do. We just like to get them in, because Matt's having better time this year, but having a hard time getting some of the kids to focus on even looking at potential careers. They're looking at high school as the end. There's a big, even I think sometimes us as teachers and educators, if we can just get them through high school, well, that's not the end, that's the beginning. And so if we don't give them these experiences, then they graduate and we go, yay, you graduated. And they go, I don't know what I want to do. We work with Igniting Talent with a couple of kids, which is what foundation? The Joe Abate. Did I get it? The Joe Abate Foundation in East Haven. And they take some of our kids that are not focused at all and give them really great experiences, and at least get them thinking about it, where Matt can't, I can't, Katie can't, Erica can't, none of us can get them going. And so we're pulling out all the stops. And if you guys have any ideas or think you can help or have contacts, we'll take those all day long. Bob Yarmartino just reached out to us about somebody to work, and we already found him someone. So it's perfect. I'm like 5 minutes.
So
yeah, I think too, and I wonder if we at some point, even like fourth quarter at Strong in like the 8th grade, if we offered somewhere in one of the courses, whether it's health or one of the electives, a focus on career, because I think that they are behind in thinking about what they want to do. You talk about 2 years that that was put on the back burner, and I think that that's a real thing. And I applaud you guys for this entire idea, like thinking of pathways and building this ship. And I think it's absolutely amazing. It's an incredibly tall order for a district our size because we're not tiny and we're not large. So the funding's not there on the top side, and the bottom side of it is it's not low enrollment like Westbrook. So I have full confidence, Matt, you're wonderful and you do a great job. And I think, starting small is a great idea. I think the best thing moving forward is just to be able to be really open with the kids and with families and say, hey, we're starting here, but if you have an interest, come to us. That way we're thinking about the kids who are already on the ship that we haven't built yet, and where they're going to go. So I'm really encouraged by it. So thank you guys.
Thanks, Lindsay. It's been invigorating. I mean, we walk out of those meetings and they're exhausting, but then I think people are very excited to get the work done. And so I'm happy about that. If nobody has anything else, the update for personal finance is really quick, but go ahead. Somebody was going to say.
To kind of dovetail with Lindsay, what are you looking at for timelines, what you're going to do in the future to build in additional career opportunities as you're going forward? You may focus on one particular area, but there's a lot of other areas, and you don't have to wait until one is all set before you move on to another.
Absolutely true, because we have a lot of things already in place. So as we get the interest inventories, as these kids start to know that we're going to ask them the question, what are you interested in? Then Matt and our other counselors will start heading them toward those classes. I don't ever want to see, to Bob's point, a kid leave Coggin-Chog to think they want to go into engineering. I don't care what kind, any engineering, right, Bob, that never even had a basic physics course. Like, I don't think that speaks well for Coggin-Chog, you know what I mean? So if they have an interest, we've got to get them to physics. We've got to get them to Erica's class. If they have if it's biomedical and they're that specific, and I know who you're talking about, and I'm so excited for her, that we get them into the right courses. If it's engineering, if it's manufacturing, and North Branford does open up, maybe we try it with one or two kids that go down there in the afternoon. We set something up with North Branford High School, and we get them out of the building as juniors and say, go see what a CNC machine does. Go see how this thing works. If they hate it, at least they'll know it. And I'm speaking from experience. I mean, my son thought he wanted to do, I tell these stories all the time at these meetings. Like, that's what Liam thought he wanted to do. And he got to his first job and he was like, no. I'm not standing and looking at this machine all day and having somebody yell at me that I can't even sit down, and the machine never breaks. And when it does, nobody told me how to fix it. So, and that was his experience. That's not everybody's CNC manufacturing experience, but I wish he had had those opportunities in high school so that we didn't spend a year trying to figure that out for him. And that's okay. He figured it out, but the more we can do that, I think the better off we are. Doug?
I was going to say, Kim, one more thing though,
Yeah.
Deb, that I wanted to add is that I think in terms of the timeline though, we really
sorry,
did talk
Lucy.
about adding in a new pathway at least every year, so that, because I know like we were most comfortable with the health sciences right now, but then, the engineering technology pathway and the business pathway should soon follow, because for those, we just need to make sure the right courses are in place. So we do have a kind of a 3-year timeline, I would say.
True. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about a lot of courses that are college-oriented courses, but there are also a number of students who are not going to go to college and may even go into a job right after high school. And those are the students, especially, I think, that sometimes have issues with motivation and school attendance. So they need to have courses for them as well, direction.
Yeah, and that's just it. Like, even though it's articulated, doesn't mean that it's harder. Even though they can get college credit, doesn't necessarily. So an intro to manufacturing course is taught at several of our state schools for credit, including, well, Goodwin isn't, but UB has a intro to manufacturing that I would argue any of our kids that are interested in that pathway, any of them, and I mean that loosely, any of my kids in that school that think that they can get college credit if they want, but they don't have to do the college credit. So, and I think you probably know this too, some of the college courses that kids are taking aren't the hardest courses, but they get their 3 credits, right? So, and that's okay. A credit's a credit. It is what it is. So I think it's going to be accessible to a lot more students than we think. That's my prediction, and I see them shaking their heads.
Yeah, I agree with you, Deb. I feel like, the AP courses, the UConn courses, a lot of the times they also come with that stigma that if you're not the very highest academic, you shouldn't even consider it. And I don't even know where that comes from. It's just, that title of AP, where when you actually have that choice of it's a college course and I'm going to go for it, and there's not so much weight as like AP tests in May, I think a lot more students are going to try and challenge themselves. And that's a great thing. Also, I mean, AP and UConn credits for the ECE courses aren't accepted everywhere. So by being able to offer these articulated courses with other colleges here in Connecticut that are also accepted in other states, again, we're just opening so many more doors for students who might not have before this thought college was even really an option for them, especially trying it in high school when they can have a lot of the supports academically, socially, emotionally that we offer in high school that might not be there in college.
Okay. Doug?
You're on mute.
You're muted, Doug.
You're really still cold from last night. I think.
I am sorry. Yes, I am. I want to thank everybody and good conversation. I think two things. Lindsay mentioned the whole middle school piece, and in our kind of discussions around strategic planning and how this all aligns, we feel like, yes, we need to build these pathways, but the next logical thing should be some sampling of the pathways, at least for interests at the middle school level, maybe even in the upper elementary school. So it's not like the learners have to come to 9th grade and that be their first exposure. And so we want to build that in. Again, this is going to be a multiple year, it's not going to happen even in 2 and 3 years that everything is going to be up and running, but that doesn't preclude us from offering pieces of it as we're kind of building it. The other piece that Deb mentioned, and Matt may have mentioned it as well, that excites me about this is if someone is in a pathway, there's a logical connection then to a job shadow, internship, or even their own community-based employment. And why I think this is so important is we've kind of danced around it here, but I think for too long, not just here, but everywhere in American high schools, we've kind of viewed as, well, if you're academically minded, you get on this kind of college prep track, and that is the preferred track, and that's what you do if you can. And if you can't, then let's find you something else to do so you can go out and work. I think what we're trying to say is everybody works. That everyone should go and work at some place. Some jobs do requires an associate's degree, some require an undergrad, some might require graduate school, professional schools, or things like that. We want them to explore those things and not limit their options, but also get them excited about coming to school. And even if these are courses that we already offer, if we can package them as a pathway, I know that sounds kind of gimmicky. They might not even understand how some of these courses relate to each other and could support them potentially working in a field. I think, so that's my excitement. My cautionary note for all of us is that we not go out and promise too much of this too soon, because it really is going to take a while, and we will map it out over a significant number of years, and it might also have impact to our budget. And so we don't want that budget impact to drop out of nowhere or to hit in one particular year. And that's where I think you'll see planning around that. And, the board is going to have to be okay with that. I don't think we're anticipating anything heavy for the next budget cycle, but we wanted to let you know that just the planning of this is a big deal. And kudos to all these folks for getting us to where we are today.
What does Sal say? Or you say it too, Doug? Under
promise and over deliver.
There it is. Under promise and over deliver. That's what we're going for. Way over delivering, but not too under promising. Jamie, do you have something? Sorry, you've been.
Sure. Deb, thanks for coming. You mentioned about the industry credentials. I heard you mention OSHA and stop the bleed and things of that sort. I'd advise be cognizant of expiration dates on these things. We'd want to time it so with which they get out of school, they still have that credential. Some of them expire in as little as 3 years, and that would be kind of crappy if somebody took it in 9th grade. You're familiar with our CTEC system that I work in. We do stop the bleed for ninth grade because they're all in a dangerous shop. We want them to be very safety conscious, and maybe not that they're going to be practicing to save somebody, but all that works out pretty good. These courses do have a cost. We took the OSHA course. It was absolutely horrible. It pertained to about 25 different trades. It was not very focused. And, that might work for our situation, but it's not at all inexpensive. And it's multiple chapters, and it would require human resources on the district's part to monitor the students' progress, because these things have expiration dates. They start a course. If they don't do all those damn chapters in a certain frame of time and pass all the questions and then take the final test, the whole thing just goes away. So it's a moneymaker for these companies. They probably like it when people have to retake the tests. But there's so many good ones out there that I think could pertain more focus to particular interests as we build on it in years to come. Right now, my trade, as you know, is culinary, and we do a program called Always Food Safe. It's a new program. It's kind of a new thing. For Serve Safe was the older one, but it's a great thing that's very focused and directed, and they get a nice diploma. But we time it so they build upon. There's 4 different ones they take. There's one on food allergies, very, very important subject, so we don't kill somebody with food. We have a food manager certification, a food handler certification. There's just the sky's the limit when it comes to those. Obviously, I'm talking to one industry, but I'd like to finish with just the presumption to piggyback a little bit on Lucy. The kids going to school. It's a different world today. So few high school kids actually have a job. I don't know the stats on it, but that's all I hear over and over and over again. It's not even part of the mind frame to get a job. I made my daughter get a job. She's working now. Damn it. She's doing coffee at Dunkin'. And she really enjoys it. I see a huge change in there. I presume we have, perhaps within guidance, just a job board, something to connect kids with jobs. And they're not always going to take the initiative and go on Indeed and whatever other sources they're going to find. But just whatever we can do to encourage them. Yes, we're always competing with all the other activities. My good friend Stephen, you might know Keegan, that Keegan doesn't work now, but he's going to have to because football season's over. And now he will have the time. But yeah, it's always like a tug of war between the activities, which we want the students to participate in, and yet still allow time to perhaps, just get a job and realize the value of $15 an hour and taxation and, all those other things that are very important adult skills to be mindful of. But
Yeah.
All right, thank you again.
Thank you, Jamie. And I'd love to, or Matt can, I'd love to, as we get closer, pick your brain on some of those certifications. We did talk about Serve Safe, and I didn't know there was a new one. And just the expiration date, we talked about that, having them do it as 9th or 10th graders, but then recertifying them before they left, because we know the research so much easier. But yes, but I appreciate so much your feedback because you're in it every day in that tech school. So I value your expertise on that. And if you think of things like that as we're building that, please reach out to one of us by email and let us know if you have a great idea, or even if you don't think it's a great idea, and we might. So, we don't have that. My tech background is limited to Liam's 4 years at Vinyl. So, but we'll take anything any of you have. Don't ever think it's a dumb suggestion. If you have one, please send it our way, or somebody says, hey, have they thought about this? We are open to hearing it all. So, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think Dib makes a really, really good point. We're talking about wanting kids to find those passions, and Doug touched on it really quickly, and he said that not to overpromise, and I think that's important too, but it's also being very specifically honest and saying we don't. And I said that before, and I think that's exactly what Doug's trying to say. As I said before, is that we have these paths, we don't have this currently, but what can we do to support that, or what can we get close to starting you on that path? Because in 3 years or 2 years, we might have that path already started, and maybe that one kid that this coming year it's not health and human services, it's something else, but we were able to catch them mid-path would be amazing for them. And I'm wondering if we talk about budgeting and we talk about what things are going to cost and what programs are going to come and what that's going to entail. I wonder if even student achievement, we can every 3 months talk about where we are with pathways and say, hey, we just came into this. We think this is going to be an expensive cost. Is this something we should move forward, ahead of time? I think it would greatly help the board as opposed to getting stuff like very close to budget, which is, you know, how we get it anyway. But this is going to be huge for the high school, and, you know, for staff to know that, you know, the board's already talked about it and we know this is an obstacle and we're going to move forward. I think it's going to be really important. So
And
I want to think of
I think
that.
that's, yeah, I think that's great. Sorry to cut you off, Lindsay. I think that's great. I would love to do that. And one or several of us can come, because you're right. As we get ideas and start to think, wow, you know, Craig's teaching all of these EMT and other courses, like who's our intro to engineering? How are we going to, and as long as we can have, and I'm okay with it, have those open and honest conversations here. I think you guys are troubleshooters with us. It's not just the money, it's thinking outside the box. And sometimes we get caught up in it. And so I would love that. I would love, and I think Matt and the rest of us, you know, if someone can't come, I feel complete confidence that somebody else can talk about it. We're in it now, and it's been invigorating. It's been great.
Yeah, I think it's great. Thank you, guys.
And then moving forward, the personal finances.
Yeah. So this summer, we knew this was coming. So this summer, we reached out to Ryan Doniker in the business department, and we said, you know, we have to do this. It's got to get done. And by happenstance, I think it's just karma. He had some room in his schedule, second half of the year. So a couple of weeks ago, probably more than that, we well, no, because it's been in the Power School for a while. We did put it in, and I think we have 24 kids registered for it right now.
26.
26. Registered for it right now. It's going to be a work in progress. Right now, we're going to use what we had before. Matt and he developed some stuff together and taught it together at one point, right, Matt? You were involved in that. You know, it's required for the outgoing freshmen. But we're going to offer it starting next semester, and it's a half-year course, so we're going to offer it every single time. The parent that emailed and asked, legitimately, there's nothing wrong with that. It didn't fit into her child's schedule, but they didn't know about it because it wasn't in the program of studies. So that's where that kind of, you know, didn't work out. So we are going to run it. We're going to start with these 26. We did not prioritize the freshmen. Though if they're in there, and I'm not sure we should necessarily prioritize them as freshmen. I think they need it closer to senior year. Matt will tell you that. Bye, Erica. Thank you. You know, I think it needs to be later than that, but I do want to fulfill that requirement for kids too. I mean, we often get kids back from other schools that, you know, don't have their Health 9 requirement or don't have their language requirement, and then we're chasing ourselves to kind of get them in. So if a kid wants to take it, and I'm sorry, I'm going to ask forgiveness on this one, but we're also piloting, which I think is very interesting, out of interest end of last year, and I can send you the course request, piloting an economics, a macroeconomics class, half year with Alexis Noheimer, because that can be taught out of a social science. It is a social science, but out of a social studies lens. So she has offered to develop. Again, we got the curriculum from UB because now, or a good one, I'm not sure which. Now, if we're going to develop new courses, right, we want to look and see if somebody already has them, because if it's worth 3 credits to somebody, it's worth 3 credits to somebody. Being an economics major in college, I think it's a very worthwhile course just to understand how the world works, especially a macro course. So that's another, you know, it's not financial literacy, but it does have a lot of elements of financial literacy in it. And I do think that it's a pretty important thing. So we'll let you know how that goes. And if we continue to get the interest, Katie, do you have your computer in front of you? How many kids are registered for econ?
14.
So 14 are registered for second half. And I look at that as 14 kids that aren't in the study hall. And so I'll take that all day long.
So somewhere over those 4 years, it's required for them to take the incoming freshman or the freshman this year.
The freshmen this year will be
Okay.
required to have it as a graduation requirement when they go.
So the plan would be to catch them over the course of the 4 years, not necessarily recommend it during any certain year.
Correct. Matt does right now, the way we're doing capstone, he sees all his seniors a half year, and he does a lot of it with his seniors, but I think it'll be more meaningful after they've had the finance course, because they just, even, I don't know, Matt, you speak to it. They're having a hard time because they don't understand how it works.
Yeah. One of the requirements from the state is that you have to teach FAFSA, which has been changed and modified. This year, it actually rolls out in December, which is in a few days. Traditionally, you could do it in the fall, but it almost makes more sense to get them the first part of their senior year back into their junior year, because they're going to be faced with FAFSA, paying for college, student loans, auto loans, taxes, because they probably have their first job if they're working. So it doesn't really make a ton of sense to go earlier in their academic career, just because it's not applicable. And one of the things that I roped into Capstone with that is we do a budget where they have to basically, once they've selected their college, figure out their student loans, how much they're going to pay. They have to pick a city that they think they're going to live in, actually go on Zillow and pull rent. And we do an activity around that. And it's a lot more probably tangible to them than it would be to a freshman. So that would be what I would advocate for, is, I guess, back half of the junior year, first half of the senior year, because it's just there.
Do we have a way to catch the kids that aren't fitting it into their schedule? Do they have to eventually make a choice between, elective that they want versus taking that financial literacy? Or
Right now we do have, and we had it last year. Matt was able to obtain an online option from Ramsey. It's free. I think last year we gave some kids credit, right, Matt, if they completed a certain number of modules. Again, not ideal, Lindsay, not the way we want to teach it. In person, we've learned, is always better. But if it's a choice between, you can only fit in medical terminology and I'm really going to go off to med school, or I have to take this personal finance class, then we do have other options that we know of right now. And we'll probably keep that open to some extent. Even it's not in virtual high school that I know of right now, but even our virtual student on virtual high school, I budgeted for some of those. Right now, she's the only one using them, just because I didn't know if anyone was going to come out of 8th grade and want to take Latin. And so I did budget for some of those. We do have some online things that we pay for, but Ramsey right now is free. Is it still free, Matt? Because somebody bought it for us.
It was a gift from UW. Yeah. Electrical wholesalers. They reached out and said, we'll pay for this for you. Just make sure you use it. So I use it with Capstone. We do a whole student loan unit. But there's actually, now that it's becoming more standard nationwide, a lot of nonprofit groups are writing curriculums and working with schools to help implement them, to make sure that the schools are doing, not just a good job, but just to be there to support them, because a lot of outside groups find it very valuable. Junior Achievement New England has one. NGPF has one. So there's a few different organizations that have actually reached out to say, hey, we'd be happy to work with you and help you implement this curriculum with these lessons that we've helped to write and things like that make it. And a lot of them often have connections to, banks and businesses and things like that. So they're really good resources out there.
And the state's not really, they're being pretty open with what's being required.
Open is a very nice word. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Open. We also, and we do this a lot anyway, so I just put this out there. If we really get a kid in a hard, tight spot, we will do an independent study. They would do it with Matt or do it with Ryan and have a project to complete. And have to be motivated to get their credit, right? We don't just pass them because it is a true independent study. If a kid gets caught in anything that they really need, we don't do it in Spanish for a language, but we'll do it, for a Health 9 requirement if they can't fit it in and they're a 12th grader and they haven't had Health 9 yet.
Great. Thank you.
I have to run. I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Hey, thank you.
It's a great group to work with. I have to tell you guys, it just happened who they were, but it's been amazing. The change in everyone's level of excitement going forward. It's been really nice. So updating would be great, Lindsay. I thank you for that suggestion.
Thank you.
And just even the feedback from parents and the kids last year with Matt has been amazing. They truly appreciate everything he does and they respect him, and it's great. It's great to see. It's a perfect role for him.
Yeah, it's been great. All right, Lucy, is Katie and I done too? Can we go?
Yes. Yes.
Not that I don't want to stay, but dinner is calling, so I have to go make dinner.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you
much,
both.
guys. See you
Appreciate it.
soon.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 6, EL update.
Okay, so I'll give you the update. We're continuing on implementing modules. October, we started skills block, and all block has been started in grades 3 through 5. Most of our grade levels are finished with module 1. Some are near the end of module 1. We did have a meeting with the coaches a couple weeks ago on a Friday, and we were having a lot of conversations. I should say the coaches and the interventionists. We were having a lot of conversations just about, things that we're seeing, things that we're hearing from the teachers, from the learners. And so some of the feedback that we've gotten is the phonological awareness skills are increasing overall in our learners. Some are still struggling with some of that background knowledge. This program really builds on background knowledge. One of the beginnings of one of the modules is really to develop that background knowledge so that it makes it a little easier as they're going and learning. So teachers are having to stop and kind of spend some time building that background knowledge. But it's working, and that was something that was to be expected. Our special ed team is really seeing a lot of gains in our learners with the micro phases within those skills block. We're seeing an increase in small group instruction with more targeted support. So, as we've mentioned all year, it is a lot on our teachers. There's a lot of new learning for them. They're spending a lot of time, really learning this platform, but we are starting to really see a lot of positive outcomes from it. One other thing that we've really had a lot of conversations about is report cards. So with any new program that you bring in, the report card might not necessarily 100% be aligned. Now, we're standards-based, so it is aligned. The only thing, however, is that at this stage, the parents are probably not going to see as many markings on the report card as they had in the past. And that's just because the teachers haven't covered as much content as of yet. That doesn't mean they're not going to cover all those standards. They are definitely going to cover all of the standards by the end of this school year. So what we are doing is we're drafting a letter, and we're going to send the letter home with the report card so that parents are aware, of if they see less markings on the report cards, it's just because of, the rollout of this new program. But we are assuring them that by the end of the year, all of those standards will be marked. So we've been having a lot of conversations about that, documenting things. And then June is the time when we start to send those changes over. And so then next school year is when we will really start to see those report cards adjusted to be more aligned with the program. In terms of professional learning, we had a professional learning day on November 7th, where teachers were provided with a lot of time to really just work collaboratively or work independently. And I the feedback that I've gotten from that day is they really appreciated having that time. Obviously, we all wish that there was more of it, but it's a struggle to find time, and it's a struggle to find sub coverage to give the teachers the time. So we're doing the best that we can with what we have. But they really appreciated that. They really took advantage of that. We are also looking at one-to-one coaching with Better Lessons. So Better Lessons is, the organization that we did struggle with back in the spring with our professional learning that was delivered to the staff. However, the districts that I have been collaborating with, who also did not necessarily have a great time with their PD with that group, they have said that the one-to-one coaching has been really beneficial, and they've seen a lot of success with that. So I did reach out to a rep on Monday to kind of inquire, about that. I'm still waiting to hear back from somebody. We've also officially been accepted to the professional learning cohort. So I know I had mentioned this in a previous meeting. Very recently, within the last week or two, I got an email saying, we're welcoming you in. Our first meeting is actually tomorrow. And tomorrow's meeting is going to have a big focus on the multi-tiered support system and tier 1, and really how to look at the data and how to make, informative decisions in the classroom using that data from those microphases, from the assessments that they have. And it's also going to touch on how to, better support our multi-language learners with this kind of robust program that we have. We also have noticed that, this program with the skills block really ends at second grade. And so when they get to third grade, there's an expectation that our third graders are going to have really strong spelling skills, and we'll get there, but it's year one. So we had a lot of conversation a couple of weeks on, needing a way to bring in more assessments that focus on encoding for our third graders. So the coaches and the interventionists are currently working closely together to kind of try to find the best resources. We've actually come up with quite a few good ideas, and now they're kind of taking a look at all of them and seeing what makes sense and what could be used and how it could be used, just to make sure that, we're still working on that with our third graders, because it is a skill that we have to continue to build. As far as the middle school, one thing that I will say, we did have a conversation, Cheryl, myself, the 6th grade ELA teacher, the 7th grade, and then the coach over at Strong. And so we have been having conversations about whether or not we are going to bring EL up to grade 6 or up to the middle school at all next year. We just started to have conversations, so it's very fresh. We haven't made any kind of decisions, but we're looking at our current curriculum, grade 6 through 8, and how it aligns with the EL program. And we're really trying to figure out if it makes sense to either bring EL on board at the middle school or to make some changes. If we're going to make changes at our middle school curriculum, it's going to be a lot of work. There's a lot of change that needs to be made, because the program, EL is just a very comprehensive, all-included, very rigorous program. And, we want to make sure that when our kids go from 5th grade to 6th grade and continue on to 7th and 8th, they're still getting that same experience. So we're starting to have some conversations now about what we're going to be doing moving forward. Vocabulary, I know that, EL is not at the middle school, but vocabulary is still something that is an area of concern that we're really, I know that all the teachers are really working hard on trying to embed a lot of strategies to help our learners really build those foundational skills in their vocabulary and their comprehension skills at the middle school. So we're having conversations about what we're going to do. And I think that's about it for the update. So I'll take any questions if any of you have any. Yes, Lindsay.
Quite an update.
No, that's awesome. That's a great update, Stephanie. And I, when you hear a lot and you bring in such a big program like this, you're bound to have a stressful situation and frustrations, and everyone's teaching styles are different and every kid is learning differently. With the professional learning cohort and the 1-on-1v1 PD, are we expecting them to do that outside of their day, or are they having options for that?
So there's going to be options as of right now. So because I literally, when I tell you I just found out about this, I think it was like Tuesday when I was leaving for the day. So I reached out to the coaches. I let the building principals know. For this first one, we invited the coaches. Unfortunately, the time of it is 3:30 to 4:30. So it's outside. It's nothing I can control. That's just the cohort. And I think they did that because it's a cohort that's made up of a lot of different districts, not only in Connecticut, but in Massachusetts and nearby states. So they really had to try to find a time where they were going to be able to have people available. So one thing that we are making sure our teachers know is that they can log those hours towards their June flex days. They are also recorded from my understanding. So we do have a Google Classroom where we've been posting a lot of professional learning webinars and things like that. And we're going to make sure that we continue to post those. And so if they do have time during a PLC or a faculty meeting of some sort, they have those options available to them at all times.
Yeah, and I think that's what's important. And I think it's been so taxing for a lot of the staff just to go home and spend hours and hours trying to, structure the lesson plans and work through them. And, we want to support them as much as possible. And I know we run into a lot of roadblocks between substitutes and, 504 meetings and sickness. And I, maybe it's something at the board level we talk about, but, we talk about it, here just in segue, is that we need to find a way to encourage more substitutes in this district. I know it's everywhere. but we have to find a way, because we're gonna continue to burn out staff, and in conjunction, we're gonna burn out kids, because if
Right.
our teachers aren't supported and don't feel that they can do it, the kids aren't either. So, it's a tough way to find a solution. Some things don't have perfect solutions, but we've got to find some sort of way. And because I think it's hitting the staff really hard, because all of a sudden it's one day and there's 5 teachers out, and they're all legitimate reasons, obviously. And they don't plan for that. And they've already worked really hard at night planning for, their day, and they don't have substitutes to cover. And I feel for them a lot. And I think that just adding that PD, as much as they're going to want it, I think it's going to be tough, because they're trying to, detach and have their own lives outside of a work day too. So I know we're trying, but to find a balance, we'll have to find it somewhere. So thank you, guys.
No problem.
Doug?
Yes, Doug. Sorry, Lucy.
Doug. No, I called out Doug.
You're muted.
As soon as he unmutes, yes.
I am sorry. I am struggling with that today. One of the things, and this may bleed over to another topic tonight or in a future meeting, that as I've had the opportunity to meet with teacher groups again this fall, and whether we're talking about elementary or middle school potentially with EL, but I think it also bleeds over to the math discussion, is, again, this is not an indictment of anybody or our systems or whatever, but it seems like we have an opportunity that we haven't really explored in depth, because maybe we just like things the way that they are, in maybe being a little more deliberate of building extra time into our schedules for ELA and for math, and this is not to disrespect any other subjects or things that we offer or that we promote, but those 2 subject areas tend to be the ones that hold learners back in all subjects as they move forward through school and through life. And so, these are hard conversations to have with teachers and with administrators about time and schedule. And yet I guess, as we've talked, and many of the teachers agreed, like, if we're not willing to have those conversations and think about doing things differently, we may feel like we can change programs, we can do whatever we're going to do, and we still may not really feel like the kids are getting what they need in those spaces. And so one example I would just give you, and I don't think she would mind me using her name here, but when I met with the 6th grade team at Strong, and they brought up the EL program and what they've heard already, they know it's a lot of work, but they've also heard they think it's better than what they're currently doing. And I said, well, how do you guys feel about if we brought this up into 6th grade next year? And the answer was, well, we would like to consider that, but if the master schedule doesn't change and it's all boxed into what is currently the English language arts block in 6th grade, it probably isn't going to work. And when I brought that back to Stephanie, she said, well, yeah, other middle schools that are doing this have adjusted their schedule. So again, this is not me telling you we're going to change our schedule at Strong next year, or even that we're going to do the program. Obviously, there's more conversation around that. But even when we look at K-5, we kind of do things the way that we do things, and people are comfortable with those things. And I think we have adjusted that for EL at the elementary level. Math is still an issue with that, and so we're going to have to do some real work. And I guess my thought that I think our leadership team kind of agrees is, maybe the opportunity of this reconfiguration gives us the opportunity to rethink some of these things as we're moving teachers, presumably from one school to another, combining grade levels. And another idea that came from some of these teachers, again, not that they all want to do it, is that maybe with the combining of grade levels, there could be some sharing within larger blocks, like say around EL, so that every teacher that's teaching English language arts, say 3rd grade, for example, doesn't have to learn every module. And all these stories we're hearing about the hours and hours that these great teachers are putting in, maybe there's a way to kind of smooth that out. And again, I bring it to you to say, if they can design that and bring us a way that they can do that and buy into it, that is so much better than us going to them and saying, you all have to do it this way. But they, what I want to say is they are feeling the stress of the hours. Many of you have probably heard that. I haven't heard one of them say it's a bad program. They think it's a good program. It's just a lot of new to implement. And this is from some of them that even asked for a new program. They admit they asked for a new program, and now that they have it. So again, not saying that any of this will happen, but we wanted you guys to know that we're having those conversations. And I think that's responsible, especially as we talk around scores and things like that. Like, it's not just the program, it's also how are we structured to deliver and support those programs?
Lindsay?
No, and I think Doug does make a good point. And, this isn't damning on anybody. And I think that's why I brought it up, is that, we're talking about middle school and having 2 in there. I can tell you how hectic it is for not only the kids, but the staff. And it's, it's a lot of behavioral, it's a lot of getting these kids to focus. And I would worry about this grade taking on that EL program right now without significant time. So if it is something that, we do think needs to go up to that 6th grade, that we do that as soon as possible, and we give them the opportunity this year to be able to dive into that, because, for lack of, anything, what we always learn from everything. And from what I just see is that we just need to do better in onboarding and making sure that the staff, that this is as easy as possible for them, with what they have, and I think we all agree on that. And so if we can keep updated on that and in those talks, and obviously it's something we should probably talk about ahead of budget season, because that will be, I imagine, an impact if we're adding 3 grades for that program. My other question on EL is, there's been a little bit of conversation just from parents in the community and in general on the writing skills within EL. How is that rolled out as opposed to reading versus writing with the EL? Is it in that all block, or is it in?
So it's both. So they're in the modules that they have K through 5, because they really should have used different terminology. This is one of my biggest things, because you have the modules, like the module lessons, but then you have the module skills block. So I don't know. But in the modules, the content, where the content is mainly covered, that is where they do some writing. Now, K through 2, they do writing during that module time. Their skills block is mainly focused on building their phonological awareness and those skills. In grades 3 through 5, they also have writing built into those content modules. However, the majority of their writing is done during that all language learning block. So that all block. That's where they spent a significant amount of their time writing. So that there's not as much writing. There is writing K through 2, but it really ramps up when you get to grades 3, 4, and 5, because they have that extra component of the all block that really builds on top of their writing skills.
So that all block doesn't start at the beginning of the year? Is that, so it starts later on as the module starts, or is it just because we onboarded with a new program?
That's why, yeah. So it is
Okay.
technically supposed to start in conjunction with, like, skills block doesn't have to start at the beginning of the year. Now, we decided again this year to wait until October just to give teachers that time to kind of understand and learn the module lessons. But skills block, that could start in October. The all block should be starting along with module 1. But again, because it was rolling it out, we didn't want to throw everything at them at once, so that we decided we're going to start, the module lessons in September, and then in October we're gonna start that all block when they're feeling comfortable. So hopefully next year, in year 2, we'll be able to start both in conjunction right from the start.
Can we just ask whoever's called in on that last number to mute, or if Doug, if you could mute them for them, it might be more easier if you help mute that, because there seems to be some background noise.
Thank you. Perfect.
And
Okay.
thank you for that, Stephanie. That, that does it. I think that explains it. I think that there's been such a focus on reading, and I think there might be some confusion from the parents, and again, you sometimes have to read everything, and I've been telling parents that it's very important, make sure that you're reading what your kids are doing, what's coming home, and understand it. It's a lot to understand, but it would make sense with that all block being later on, that they're just getting into that now. So I think that makes sense. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, any other thoughts, questions? Okay, we'll move on to item 7, evaluation system update.
Okay, so you also get me for this too. So we had a PDEC meeting on November 7th during our professional learning day. We were able to meet for about an hour and 15 minutes. We had a lot of really great participation and a diverse group. So variety of roles were present. We had about over 30 people present, which was great. I mean, we had a lot of really good conversations at that meeting. I am happy to say, I don't know if I said this at the last meeting because I'm not sure if it was official yet, but Matt Tabor is my co-chair. So we are working together, which has been phenomenal because we've had a lot of good conversations. We've bounced a lot of great ideas off of one another. So basically what we did at our meeting on November 7th is we looked at our current evaluation plan, and we documented things that we are currently doing that are a part of the state guidelines must-haves, and also that are a part of their should-haves, because I think we talked about this last time. We really want to make sure that if we're doing something already in our plan that is working and is working well and people appreciate, we want to hold on to that and we want to build off of that. So we really had more reflection time. Each group, kind of provided us with a lot of different feedback. After that, we then really focused on what we currently have that aligns to the guidelines. And we really focused on anything that we really strongly felt that we should change or modify. Whether it's not working or, just it wasn't working well, whatever the case may be, we really focused on what we really should consider just eliminating. After the group spent some time, jotting some things down on poster board, everybody had the option to go around with Post-it notes and to leave little comments on the posters, just to kind of build off of what everybody suggested. And then we took all of that feedback. So we have a nice Padlet going with all this information that we keep the PDEC updated with. And after that meeting, at the end of that meeting, Matt and I should say prior to that meeting, Matt and I had a conversation about just what work needs to be done throughout the year. Because again, this is a big task. It could be a big task, and we don't have a lot of time. And we have a great opportunity, and we want to make sure that this is done right and it's done well. So Matt and I had a conversation about, having 30 plus people in our PDEC is amazing, but it might make it very difficult to make certain decisions moving forward. So we through the idea at PDEC about having a smaller subcommittee that will meet more frequently every month to take the feedback of the larger committee and to start drafting our evaluation plan. And everybody was in agreement with that. So we do now have a smaller subcommittee of about 8 to 10 of us. Again, high school, elementary representation, administrative representation. And we have our first meeting next week on Wednesday, where what we'll do is we will take the feedback that we have gathered from all of our meetings so far. And actually, Matt has been great. He took our current evaluation plan, and he has started to already go in and make some modifications to it based on the feedback that we got, so that our small subcommittee can now see what modifications we're starting to make to our plan, and then to really just kind of collaborate on what else we can do. And we're going to do that in December. We're going to do that in January, and then we're going to reconvene again in February as a big group, where we're going to bring to the group what we have at that point. We're going to get their feedback. We're going to get their input, their suggestions. We'll go back to the drawing boards in March as a smaller subcommittee. And then April, we're hoping to have it finalized. So we're going to meet again one more time as a larger group in April. It's a lot of meetings, but it's necessary. We're going to meet again in April to hopefully finalize that so that we can bring it to you in May for approval. And we will be, as we make modifications and adjustments, again, it's very fresh because we haven't met as a smaller subcommittee, but the next time that we meet, I should be able to have a little bit more specific details in terms of what we've already kind of started to modify and what some of those ideas are. Right now, we're just trying to take everything we have and bring it together and start making some changes. I will say that CEA did come out with their model plan a couple of weeks ago. The state is not submitting their model plan, I think, until February. However, one of the cautionary notes about looking at those plans is if every district has the same thought of adopting those plans, then it's just going to become what it is now. Everybody's just going to have the same plan. And the uniqueness of these guidelines that were presented to us is that we have so much flexibility to really make this meaningful and to make it meaningful to us here in RSD 13. So we really, we have CEA's model. We took a look at it. Matt and I had a lot of conversations about it. We're going to talk about it at the subcommittee next week. But, and it's good, but it's not what we want. So that's where we're at. We're going to have a lot of meetings, so I'll have a lot of updates for you, but I will take any questions that you have at this point about the plan.
No, that's good that you're going to make your own plan that fits our school district as opposed to CEA's or any other group for that matter. Take what you could use, but make it your own.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. Great. Any other thoughts? Okay. Well, we'll move on to item 8, 2022-23 Connecticut Accountability Report, which I believe we received some slides for.
Yes. So those slides have some information from me. So I have, over the last few meetings, been giving some updates on the accountability indicators as they have become available. The first one was on indicator 1 and 2, which was on student achievement in the performance index and student growth. And then we had 6, which was college and career readiness. And recently, the entire accountability system for the 2022-23 school year came out onto EdSite Public for anybody to access. I just wanted to go over quickly a little bit about what the Next Generation Accountability System is again. It was in, yes?
Sorry, Liza, I want to stop in. Can we share a screen with that?
Sure.
For anyone that
like
currently doesn't have it, and for the recording, that would help.
Absolutely. Let me do that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. It's asking me for some settings. Please hold. It cannot record this. Okay, hold on.
Do you want me to try it, Liza?
Yeah, I was
I'm
just
the
going to ask
host.
Doug because he's the host. It may be preventing
It may
you.
be that, but let me double check. Do you see it now?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, it's there.
Okay. So now I can't see you because I'm presenting on Google Meet. So please let me know if you need anything.
Lose you. Okay.
Okay. So here we have. All right. So in 2016, the Connecticut Department of Education came out with accountability system. It was meant to provide a more complete picture of accountability within a school district. It guards against narrowing of the curriculum really by making sure that more than just literacy and math are involved in accountability. It expands the ownership of accountability to all staff that are involved in a learner's education. It encourages leaders to view accountability as a tool rather than as a punishment. And it was, as I said, developed by the Connecticut Department of Education in 2016 with a lot of stakeholder input. The Next Generation Accountability System has 12 indicators. As I mentioned, I have already gone over in more depth indicator 1, which is academic achievement with performance index, and academic growth and progress toward English proficiency, which is 2. And then as well, 6, we have done previously post-secondary readiness. The other indicators have come out, which is 3, assessment participation rate, 4, chronic absenteeism, 5, post-secondary preparation, 7, graduation on track from 9th grade, and 4-year adjusted cohort is 8. 9, graduation 6-year adjusted cohort, 10, post-secondary entrance rate, 11, physical fitness, and 12, arts access.
Now, Liza, are those just directly from the state, or were those more personalized for the district?
Those are directly from the state. Every single district has these 12 indicators on EdSite Public. On EdSite Public, you can go on there and you can see any school or district within the state of Connecticut and their ratings in these 12 indicators.
Okay, and they talk about English and math, but they only have English proficiency listed on here.
So that is academic growth and progress towards English proficiency. So in the indicator 2, which I talked about 2 meetings ago, it's academic growth in the SBAC scores, which are English and math. And then it is the English proficiency test for English learners or multilanguage learners. So those are the 2 things that go into number 2, academic growth, and then the progress towards English proficiency.
Yeah, that was a tough one, Liza. We went over this a bit at the CABE conference for one of the days, and that was a big thing that a lot of districts had found, was that some of these had weren't worded correctly in order for what they are, and one of them was that academic growth. And again, not much we can do about it. They came from the state, but it's interesting because
yes, it does. So that is one thing. We can take these from the state, and then it would be great to move then into expanding on them for what we want to accomplish as well. So we have this background from the state, and then moving forward into making them fit even further into what we hope to accomplish. So absolutely, they are a good starting point, but we can certainly move beyond that as well. So I did want to give the district overview today. The district overview is here listed in those 12 indicators. I have highlighted which indicators have gone up by 2% over last year's, which actually is the prior year, because it comes out for not the current school year, as learners have not taken any tests or anything this year for this. So what I mean is from 2021 to 22 school year to 2022-23 school year, I have highlighted those areas that have gone up by 2% in green, or have gone down by 2% or more in yellow. And if they are not highlighted, they were within that 2% margin. I will say that that 2% was picked by me. I arbitrarily saw a 2% as somewhat of significance, but statistically, I cannot say that. I did not run any of the statistical Z-test scores on every individual learner to find out the standard deviations and so on. So I will say that it is 2% is somewhat arbitrary, but I thought that that was a good indicator taking that. So in looking through that, we have our ELA performance index has stayed within that 2% of the previous year. Math performance index went up. Math performance index high need students stayed stable. Then we have science performance index went down by, the exact percentage is about 4%. I have to mention that science is taken every 3 years, and I'm a big proponent of making sure that you are testing same students of cohort so I would like to personally see at least a 4 years between 21, 22 up through that next cohort where they're taking the tests again to see the statistical significance of these scores. But of course, I'm just reporting to you as we see them here on the report. Growth went up, which is always great to see. We love to see student growth in the ELA and math areas. English proficiency did not have points earned this year. There are cutoffs for a certain number of learners, percentage of learners within your population that go into these indicator scores. And if we don't meet a certain percentage, then this is not actually tabulated in those scores. We have chronic absenteeism, which I don't want to think that chronic absenteeism went up by this. Our chronic absenteeism score went up, which means we have improved in that area. So we didn't go up in chronic absenteeism. We went up and improved in that area. So that score has improved. Percent taking courses was stable. Percent passing exams went slightly down. It went slightly down by about 4%. Again, that is at the high school range. So again, those are not same learners, but that is something that we can look into. On track to high school graduation, 4-year graduation, all students. 6-year graduation, high need students, that went slightly down. So we are going to be looking into if any other services are needed for particular students in this year's cohort of high needs population to meet the 6-year graduation mark. Then post-secondary entrance stayed stable at 100 points. Physical fitness stable as well, and arts access was at 100 points. So 100% of the points available. So that allowed our accountability index to increase to 78.9. And I say increase, I have the next slide as the trends here. So I did put these scores here as the percentage. Here's the percentage. And then also here we have the trend lines, the greenish color being the state of Connecticut, and then the black line being the being RSD 13. I am happy that we did go up this year into 70 from 76 to 78.9. That shows we're going in the right direction. A lot of districts stayed the same, even going down, and we are very much moving upwards, especially with this big dip in COVID happening within our accountability system. And
Liza, can you post the link that we can go to compare or to look at some of the other school districts as well, because they're all on a state link?
Yes. So
Liza,
let me get to that. Oh.
Maybe you could just send it out as a note.
So they are here. So here is the for EdSite. If you click on that, this is the site. Are you able to see that?
Oh, okay, it's on the last page. Okay.
So on the last page, if you don't have,
No, it's not on here.
so this is it right here with the link, but if it's not coming through, let me get that and I will pop that right into the chat right now so you can have that. So this is, oh, and Stephanie already beat me to
I
it.
posted
There you go.
it.
Yeah, if you have the original slides, you can click on it and it does come out.
Mhm.
I believe.
There are also the resources on that is I also included the accountability slides, which is a presentation by the Connecticut State Department, and there is an introductory video about the accountability system. So those are 3 resources on EdSite, on the public site. See here, if I share this, I will show you where to go. Here we go. Share, if I share this. So on this site, there is lots of great data on here. If you go here to Next Generation Dashboard or Next Generation Legacy Report, they're actually fun data stuff to play around with. So Next Generation Accountability Result, it's not loading, dashboard here. If you go to the select district, you can slide all the way down and select region 13. I always kind of guess about where we are. Oh, that's 9, so I got to count up. And then, so there's 13. And then you have to go and unclick State of Connecticut, or else it won't show you your targets. So sometimes you can forget to click on State of Connecticut. Then here is the district level, and then here is schools as well. So you can click on the schools. So this is the trend lines, and you can look at them for each indicator. Oops. And then if you click here on the results report, then here is the results report, which is what I have on the slide. And this is for the state of Connecticut. So you would just go down to region 13. And then you click submit and it comes up. And then you can also pick a school if you wanted to. And then here are the years that they are available.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Liza, the index / rate, the index is a raw score of something, right? And the rate, the other ones that are percentages are a rate of some value, I guess.
Okay, so the index rate, and then there's the target, which is hopefully what the state has indicated the target should be for that area. Points earned is raw points according to the max points, and then it's percent earned. So what happens is there are different amount of points available for each indicator. For example, in growth, it's 100 points, max points. For performance, it's 50 points. So then what they take is the points earned against those max points, and then they do percent of points earned so that they are able to compare them apples to apples.
How do you get the points earned?
How do you get the points earned?
Yeah.
So, for example, let me see here. So 70.4 out of 75 is the target, the index rate over the target, and then that's how many points are earned out of the max points.
How do you earn a point?
Depends on the indicator. Depends on the performance and how many learners are in there, how many students are taking it. And whether it's a percent or an actual raw score point of an exam.
But it's an exam you're looking at.
For some of that is exam, for some of it's participation, for some of it's access. So that's why they do percent points earned, because each indicator has a different thing you're looking at. So for arts access, it's how many learners have access to an arts course. That's what they're doing. So it's 60%.
And do they change the targets except where it's 100%? In the past, we've looked at a number of these rankings, and the target changes each year. either goes up or goes sideways or wherever.
So it for the last, you see, 3, 4. I have at least 5 years available in front of me, and all the targets have been the same.
Okay.
So the target has remained like 75, then 100%, then 75, 94, 75, 60 throughout for the last 5 years on the accountability index.
So we say that the ELA academic growth number 2A, we were at 60.3% of the target. Is that what that is telling me?
So that was the one that when I went over, it was indicator 2, which was the percent of learners who met their target growth. So we want every student is given a target growth based on their baseline score from the year prior. And then on top of that, so they're given, they want their growth. And then that is the percent of the amount of growth that each learner has made between the previous year test and this year test. So that one is not the percent of learners who have met 100% of growth. That's the amount of growth in the bucket. That's the average growth in the bucket. Yeah. So I can, if you want, I can resend the slide that explains that, or I can pull something up if you'd like me to explain that further.
I kind of remember it from, 2 or 3 years ago, but we haven't gone over it in a while. So,
And we had quite a discussion about time, and I'm not sure we actually came away 100% clear either.
It took me it took me several resources to actually get that. So
Caught up with words. I personally have you put some kind of a description out for each of these, because it's tough to follow. It's one of those things you have to read several times to figure out. Yeah. But I remember that. This is one indicator that we have for academic achievement, but this obviously is not specific. It's very general, and it doesn't give you the strengths and the weaknesses. Do you have what other assessments do we get that would get into that?
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is, so we have several focus areas in that. We actually have diagnostics 3 times a year in K through 8. Those diagnostics are actually, I feel that they are much more helpful to the growth of a learner than this one-off test, which is the summative. So we have currently in K through 5, we are using DIBELS, which is a screener as well as a diagnostic in various areas of literacy. And that, again, is 3 times per year. And we use a data house called Amplify to make sure that we have all the data stored so that we can use that to make sure that we are addressing any needs of a learner. Currently in math, we are using iReady, and that is K through 8. Students take a diagnostic 3 times a year, and that gives a report to teachers and coaches regarding what areas a individual learner needs to focus on to improve in their learning. We are also currently using iReady at 6 through 8 for that same diagnostic, and that gives a lot of feedback. Within the EL program, there's also a lot of assessments that are able to be given regarding which microphase a learner needs help in, and so on. Stephanie is a Sheets wizard and made a wonderful Sheets for spreadsheet that is absolutely amazing for almost every diagnostic in EL, so that we have a housing place for that information, so that information can follow a student throughout their time in a certain grade level, to ensure that we know exactly what a learner needs to focus on to improve in that area. Then in addition, we're also working on math pathways, which includes some phases. And I know that is our next agenda item. So Stephanie's going to be speaking more to that with her math background. And then we are also, as Doug mentioned, we are going to ensure that we are looking at possible schedule changes to make sure that enough time is dedicated and allow for certain subject areas and certain growth areas. And in addition, we are, of course, focusing on those personalized learning opportunities for learners to expand in all areas. And there are plenty of ways that we are making sure to check in with learners. We also subscribe to a data dashboard. On the data dashboard, we pull in all the information from the Amplify, which is the DIBELS, iReady, SBAC, and that gives one place where a teacher or coach can go in and see all the data from those different viewpoints from those different times. And then that can be used all together to give a clear picture of how a learner is doing, and then the areas that they need for better instruction.
Hey, wow. Lindsay. Oh, you need to unmute, Liz.
Well, so, I put my hand down, but I didn't unmute. And I think you really touched on a lot of it. And I think that that's what's important. We look at all these indicators, and I went through the Next Gen accountability. And I remember during COVID going through it with my own kids, just wondering where the district was. And I think it was a lot more simplified. Even when they had the COVID dashboard in there, it still was easily understandable. It was easy to manage just from a parent's perspective. And I think looking at this, it's incredibly overwhelming. And even though these indicators are really probably helping us pare down where the weaknesses are along the district level, I think we have to think of some sort of way to simplify these numbers for parents and for the community to know that we're doing what we need to do to get to those weaknesses. So if we can brainstorm some sort of way to get data on, where are subject weaknesses, and I can send you this to, please don't feel we have to write them down, but where are subject weaknesses, whether it's grade level, school or district wide, what the subject weaknesses are, what we're currently doing to improve those weaknesses, and what future practices we're targeting to continue that growth. And the last one I would ask for is, what are we doing to prevent those scores from dipping again? And I think that kind of conversation is incredibly important for the board to hear, because we just want to hear, you guys are digging into the real details and the data of how to get there. And we just want to know, are we getting there? And what we're looking towards to get there. And, what resources do you guys need from us in order to get there? And I think we've gone back and forth a few times in meetings where we've asked for certain data and I don't think it's that you guys aren't giving it, but you're giving the information that you guys are really pouring through to find what we're asking for. And I think that those targeted areas will help the community and it'll help the board a lot. So I can send those and we can talk about them, and some of them might not be feasible. But I think it's important. And we talk about, even with the pathways with ships and building ships. And I think this is the way that accountability is going. And obviously this is, from the state. But we're on a ship currently, so we're trying to have that ship sail while trying to build it. And I just think that if we keep that in mind, I think it'll help a lot. So that's all I have. But thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Thoughts? Doug?
Yeah, just to kind of dovetail off that, I think some of I worked in the accountability pretty heavy a number of years ago. And I'm not faulting the state of Connecticut or any other state or organization. What they're trying to do, and this goes back to some of Bob's questions, is come up with some all-encompassing number that somehow grades us as a district. And I think reasonable people could disagree about how much each of those factors should be weighted. And so we can work on trying to do this at the district level too. And I'm not disagreeing with anything that Lindsay said, but what I want to add to it goes back to something Stephanie said, feels like 3 hours ago, but it wasn't that long ago. And that is for parents. Yes, they might want to know what the district's accountability scores or what our graduation rates are, what our passing scores are in this, that, or the other. But we need to do a better job of communicating to them what their own child knows and doesn't know, and what we are doing for that particular instance. And it's encouraging to hear from my meetings with teachers in small groups. They want to do this too. And that goes back to, okay, they're teaching this EL program, but they have this report card right now that doesn't really line up, and they don't want to make it look like they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And what some of the teachers were brave enough to say is almost like with the evaluation system. Can we rethink the way that we report things to parents so that it makes sense to parents, and also so that it makes sense to the learners themselves? And I think there's an opportunity here. Again, it's on the big list of everything else we're doing, but I do think there's an opportunity here, especially with the shift to EL, so that we don't have to say we're just doing this on our own. We're saying that the new program that we're delivering, which is something so basic, and it's K-5 now, but it could expand all the way up to middle school. And then we're having a parent conference. Instead of just saying, oh, your child has a 78% or something like that, we can actually say, this is what they know how to do, and this is where they're still kind of growing and struggling, and how do we work together to kind of help improve that? I think that's what parents would want. That's what I wanted. My kids were in school and felt like the districts I was, even the ones I worked for, always kind of fell short a little bit. And I think that's the opportunity. So I don't think it's a either or. I think it's a both. But I'd like to see us, putting almost as much energy into what we're telling individual parents about their kids as we are about where these indexes may or may not go. But they're both important. I'm not saying that they're not.
You're right. They are both important. I agree.
Yeah, I think we're all saying the same things. I think Doug and I are pretty close to what we're saying. From a parent perspective that you just said, and I think from a community's perspective that we have a ton of taxpayers in this district who want to know that what they're investing in the schools is worth it. And I think that that's a huge thing that we still need to keep in a watchful eye and know we're getting that audience as well, because it's, it is just as important. But I agree. And I think the staff, especially at the middle school level this year, has done an amazing job communicating to the parents on how the kids are doing both behaviorally and academically. And I think it's gone a long way. And I'm sure it's happening in other places too, but I can just tell you where I've seen it most. So thank you.
Okay, any other comments? No? Okay, we're going to move on to item 9, math practices and curriculum and program changes for grades K through 5.
So I will speak to this. I know somebody put it on the agenda, so I'm going to speak to it very vaguely, and then if you have more specific questions, please let me know at the end. Math is definitely something that we are working on. And one thing that I will say is that we do have a very good curriculum. However, one thing that we are lacking in is that progress monitoring and that assessment piece. So one area that we're kind of, and I say we, meaning myself, the coaches, some of the interventionists are helping out, but we are starting to work towards bringing in some more progress monitoring checks so that our teachers know. I will say, and I'm going to speak to EL for a minute, one amazing thing about that program is that in the skills block, for example, for K through 2, there is a station that the teacher is with the kids, and there is a very seamless progress monitoring happening, meaning the child does not know that their teacher is currently collecting data on them. It's just a very seamless thing. It just happens in that moment. It's very quick. It doesn't take time for the teacher to then go back and, to grade and to check. They really know what their learner understands and where the misconceptions are because of the conversation that they're having in that moment while doing that progress monitoring. That's missing in math. And in my background, that is a very crucial piece that we need to bring. And we are going to be working on building those and finding a way to do something that EL does and really seamlessly integrate it into the curriculum, because we don't want it to be just another assessment that our kids have to take or that our teachers have to proctor. We want it to be something that they're able to get good information, that they're really able to see that, this student really knows and understands this stuff, or you know what, you're struggling in this area, so we're going to make sure that we're providing this kind of tier 1 support for you. So that is one thing that we are going to be working on, hopefully having that ready and prepared. Not hopefully, our goal is to have that ready and prepared to implement and train the teachers for next school year. The other thing is our assessments that our teachers are giving our learners. The assessments as they stand right now don't really match up with how the content is being delivered in the classroom. So our learners are learning, workshop models, small groups. But when you look at the assessments, it's a lot of, multiple choice and check the right answer. There's not really much in-depth thinking with those assessments. So we're starting to go back into those assessments and to really look at them and make a change so that they require our learners to put more thought, more critical thinking skills into them, rather than just being able to, check a box and select a multiple choice answer. Because that's, that might be how all of us were raised, and we sat in school and we took the test where we were, circling the answers, but that's not the way that, any assessment should be, especially in math. We need our, we have those 8 mathematical practices. Those 8 mathematical practices are nice, and they are embedded within our curriculum. We do, the coaches and the interventionists prior to me coming here, they really did a nice job with building this curriculum and with pulling very good resources from a variety of really well-known publishers. Illustrative Math, we do pull from Illustrative Math. We don't use their program in its entirety. But we do pull resources from it. We pull resources from NCTM, which is amazing. They have a really good hub called Illuminations. They pull resources from that. They pull number talks and thinking skills and all these different routines that don't take much time from some really well-known math individuals, that have built up, Greg Tang Math, and can't think of all of them, but there's a lot of them. They really pulled a lot of good resources and linked all those so the teachers have them at their disposal. So it's not so much the curriculum, it's the assessment and the ability to know in the moment when a learner is struggling and what to do in that moment so that they're not moving forward, because we know what happens in math. If you move forward and you're still stuck here, you're going to be stuck here for a long time, and then it's just going to keep going on, and it builds on top of one another, and it's hard to catch up at that point. So we are also aligned with all of that. We are working on building math competencies so that our teachers have a better understanding of, if we're learning about linear equations and linear expressions and system of linear equations, and our learners are really struggling in the moment, they know exactly where they have to bring it back to or why they're struggling. So we, it's a lot of work that needs to be done. Professional learning is another thing that we are really working on. It's the time component. I know I've said this a lot, but that's because the timing is very difficult, especially with K through 5 having such a focus on EL this year. So we are pushing out, as much as we can to help support them with professional learning and math. But it is something that we are really going to start ramping up after the new year. We didn't want to overwhelm them with all of the literacy stuff and all of the math stuff. But I know it's something that's not only needed, but it's something that they want as well. So, we're starting to point them into some directions of, individuals that have really great video tutorials where they can learn different strategies and different ideas. And our coaches continue to have conversations about that data and PLCs and talk about tier 1 strategies that they can bring into the classroom. But again, when I look at the curriculum is robust. It's good. It's just the progress monitoring and the assessment that's what we really need to focus on. And that's what we're going to be working on and making improvements in.
Awesome. Sounds great. Is there anything else that we want to throw in? Math is good.
Stephanie, do we have enough skilled teachers in math?
So here's what I'm going to say. We have skilled teachers in every area. All of our teachers are skilled. But when you're thinking of K through 5.
I'm thinking about high school.
Oh, well, you didn't say high school.
I'm thinking about calculus.
I said K through 5 because that's on the agenda.
Yeah.
To be honest, I haven't been in those classrooms very often, but what I've heard positive things. I know it's a learning. We have a fairly new math department, and I know that a lot of them had to kind of adjust to teaching courses that they weren't expecting to have to teach this year. And I think that they're doing, the best they can. One thing I will say about our high school teachers is they are currently, I actually have the book right here, and we saw it somewhere today, Liza. I can't remember now what. So this is the biggest trend now, or it's been the biggest trend, building thinking classrooms. This is actually not the newest edition, but there is a new edition. This is amazing. So it really, really, the whole focus with building thinking classrooms is allowing our learners to be up at the walls, not at their seats anymore, to be learning together, collaborating with one another, to be able to look around the room to see what others are doing. Because one thing that we really have to get out of is the fact that you can solve one problem one way all the time. That is not what we want our learners to understand. We want them to know that there are so many different ways to learn math, that you really think flexibly with numbers. And there's so many different avenues that you can take to arrive at your solution. And so in this particular model, it encourages learners to basically solve problems in a way that makes sense to them, but then to be able to look around at what their peers are doing to get more ideas, to build off of each other's thinking. So our high school teachers this year, they started to read this book. This is something that they're starting to work towards implementing within their classrooms a little bit more. One of our teachers is really starting to put a big twist on personalizing instruction in her classroom, and it's been really well received and it's been going really great. Our middle school teachers did a book study on this book last year, so they're kind of all in with this now, and it's been really successful there. So I think, we're moving towards being less traditional in our math classes at the high school level and moving into bringing more of these, today routines, these today models, really getting it to be more learner-centered within the classroom while also adapting to all the newness. So that's what I can say, because again, I'm not always in there, but I've heard wonderful things. So,
Lindsay?
See, I remembered to unmute this time. I am learning. See, we all learn. So my question, so with the math curriculum, and I've heard some great things too, and I think that the weaknesses that you're saying are there too. There was at some point a text for the math curriculum at K through 5, right? And
yes.
We're currently photocopying.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah.
Have we thought about the efficiencies between that and the cost between copying and textbooks? I only say it because in approving text and coming up in budget, if it's something that can help the staff or the kids, I don't know if you guys have thought on it or talked about it. Or
I will say that, the text, and this goes with really any text that you get and that you use, it's not as, it doesn't offer everything that we currently have digitally. And so, yes, it's a lot of copying for some, not for all. I will say it's more so a lot of copying at the lower level. However, we're also using a lot more manipulatives. So there's not, or there shouldn't be as much printing and copying of things at that level, because our kids should really be working with their hands and learning with their hands. And kids at that age, actually kids at any age, forget about that age, they love writing on whiteboards. They love writing on whiteboards. Give them a whiteboard, give them the manipulatives. That's all they need. We don't need to keep making paper copies or anything. You know, they came out with these really great things, pocket folder type things a couple of years ago, where it's like a sheet protector, but it's more durable, and you just slide the sheet in there, and that way you're not making a million copies. You're just reusing those copies over and over, and they're just writing on this thing with the dry erase marker. But when I think of a textbook, and I've used a lot of different math textbooks, and illustrative math has been most recent for me. I spent quite a few years using illustrative math, and we had the textbook. They're good to have, but I find that they're not used that often. Kids are more so writing things down in notebooks. If they're writing things down, they're writing things down again on their whiteboards. You know, sure, you don't want them to get rid of everything, because we always want to come back and do some error analysis and help them to build their understanding on that. But when you're using that textbook, you know, again, in my personal experience, most of the time I maybe used 50% of the textbook. And that was because I was pulling from other resources. I was using other things, because the textbook doesn't really differentiate for you that much. And it doesn't really give you those critical thinking activities that we need to bring into the classroom. And not to mention, and again, I'm thinking illustrative math, because that's what I'm, you know, most recent I've been using, or I used most recently. It was not very easy for a lot of the kids I taught to be able to use, because it was so wordy. And so I found we had to constantly take things in the textbook and really bring it down a little bit, because it was a lot. So the textbooks are nice to have, but in my personal opinion, I think they're there as a supplement. They're not really something that somebody's going to be using constantly, page by page. It just doesn't do enough.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Okay, no other thoughts? I think we're ready to adjourn. We have a little long meeting. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Bob? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Everybody,
Thank you so much.
so much for all you do,
Yes.
and for being here with us.